The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're talking to Chris Hawver. He's the executive director of the Albany Pine Bush. Is that, can you call it, is it preserve? Is that part of the title?
Yep, Albany Pine Bush Preserve. Yep.
He's been the executive director for going on 18 years, but he's actually been there, I just found out, since 1993. So happy 25th anniversary, Chris.
Thanks, Joe.
So we're filming this today on March 8th, the day after the big storm, and I was on 155 today twice, going back and forth.
Yep.
I have to say, I was going right past the Discovery Center. It was very beautiful over there with that big, all the snow on the
pines.
Yeah, it was really
pretty.
nice. And you were telling me cross-country skiing and snowshoeing is pretty big over there.
Yeah, lots of people. A lot of people. When there weren't too many people at work yesterday. I was one of them, and I could see lots of people coming in to snowshoe and cross-country ski during the storm.
During the storm?
During
really?
the storm.
Okay, does that happen?
Diehards.
Really? Okay. Do they walk there or ski there or drive there?
They drive and they park in the parking lot at the Discovery Center.
So we're going to be talking about a lot of these things going on over at the Discovery Center in the whole area. I guess I'll start by saying the Albany Pine Bush is 3,300 acres, and it's ecologically unique. Now, is that a good term for to use?
Yep, that's correct.
It's ecologically unique, not just in the United States, not just in North America, but it's ecologically unique as a spot in the world. So why don't you explain the uniqueness of the Albany Pine Bush?
Sure. So the pine bush is what we call a pine barrens, and it's an inland pine barrens. And very specifically, it's a northeastern interior pine barrens. But what it is, it's the best remaining example of this habitat type that we have.
In the world, right?
In the world.
Okay.
These pine barrens habitats are only found in the northeastern U.S.
Okay.
And it's the best remaining example that we have. And it's similar to like Cape Cod or Long Island.
Okay.
Those are coastal pine barrens. This obviously it's different, so it's inland. But it's similar. It's very sandy. It's dry. A lot of the species are the same, the plants and animals. And the plants and animals that depend and can survive in this kind of habitat are pretty unique of themselves, too.
And I think in your other visits here, you mentioned people. You've had visitors come from literally all over the world to see the place and walk around.
Yeah, and you have people who come in from out of town to visit, or they're just driving through. They get off because they've heard about it and they want to come and visit, which is nice.
And then, of course, it is the Coroner blue butterfly is the big one of the attractions.
That's the keystone, right?
However, there's many other things going on there. I have the little book. They'll be in the library. You can get them in the front when you walk in. All your programs, this is for just 6 months, and there's dozens and dozens of programs for all ages, all times of day. There's many at night, I've noticed this time.
Yep.
So you have a lot of different categories. You have science, a science lecture series, Friday walks and talks, Pine Bush Pups, that's for kids.
Yep.
Citizen science programs, turtle time, and evening programs, and under each of those categories, there's literally dozens of programs, which we'll talk about in 1 second. But
sure.
I think a good place to start, you have on many Saturdays and Sundays a thing called Discover the Pine Bush. It's a 1 mile walk or 0.9.
Yeah.
The next upcoming ones are Saturday, March 24th, Saturday, April 7th, and then on Sundays, April 15th and June 17th. I don't think there's one in May. So if someone was to, this seems like a good introduction, if someone was to go on the Discover the Pine Bush walk? What would
they
what would they
learn about?
learn? What would they see?
So they go on basically, like you said, it's just about a mile loop, pretty flat, little rolling topography, and we have the environmental educators. It'll be led by one of the environmental educators, and they kind of give you a whole background of why the pine bush is important, why it's unique, why it's interesting.
And then while they talk all while you're
Right. So usually we start out in the classroom, give a little primer, talk about, show some slides of some things we might see, talk about the plants, pitch pine, the big pines that we see, other plants that are important there, and then talk about some of the animals too. Talk about the cardinal blue butterfly, talk about things like, say, fishers or white-tailed deer or some of the other more unique species.
Well, I noticed you got, besides all this, there's foxes, in there, fox.
Red fox, gray fox.
Turtles, birds, frogs. You have a couple programs on bees.
Yep.
The birds, you do have a little thing here. You can...
The checklist.
You have a checklist. Now, if I count it right, it's possible 132 different birds you could see.
Yep.
And I noticed many of them are... all year, they're there all year round. Some are rare. Some are summer visitors.
Yep.
They just.
Yep. So they breed like the prairie warbler. Like on the cover of that's the prairie warbler. That's one of the keystone species of the pine bush in the summer. So they breed here, and then they fly to Haiti and in the Caribbean to overwinter.
And they stop at the pine bush.
They stop. They come to the pine bush to breed, and that's where they that's where they live, and then they winter in the Caribbean.
And you do have a category. You have certain birds that are only there in the winter. They only. That's that. Okay.
Yep.
And then what's this category called historical? What does that mean?
That means that they haven't been seen in a long time, but they may.
They may. Okay.
So they may pass through. They're probably not breeding there, but they may come through during migration.
Okay. And then you have many programs to do with birds.
Yep.
So I'm sorry. So on the Discover the Pine Bush, it's basically the best introduction.
Yeah, it's like the introductory primer. Like, why is the pine bush important?
Yeah.
What might you see there? What can you experience? What are the other opportunities that you could have? And that's why we do it. We usually do it once a month.
Once a month. Okay. I'll just mention again what time they start.
It depends. So
Right,
sometimes on like a Sunday it could be 11, it could be 1. Depends on the schedule.
So if you go to albanypinebush.org,
Yep.
go to the calendar, and the next ones are Saturday, March 24th, Saturday, April 7th, and then Sunday, April 15th, and Sunday, June 17th. That's probably the best introduction.
Yep.
So your other ones, and again, I know I'm repeating myself, but on all these categories you have dozens of programs. And I should mention to people, your staff, you have on your staff, you have fire managers, GIS specialists, field ecologists, botanists, preserve stewards, among all the staff. I mean, Are these the people that do all these?
No,
And you have many educators, I should say.
Right. So the educators, just the education staff,
do all the
they do all the programming. So our communications person and education staff put that brochure together.
Okay.
That's all done in-house.
Okay.
And then the other staff that you mentioned, so there's science staff.
Yeah.
Those are the folks who basically work on this habitat.
Oh, okay.
They're the ones who monitor the things that we're doing, like as far as habitat management.
Okay, so they're...
The fire person is the person who runs the fire management, the controlled burn program.
So they don't have time to do programs, it sounds like.
No, actually, that's the programming can be fun.
Yeah, it sounds so. All right, so we'll walk through these. You can talk a little bit about each one and what people might get on one of these.
Okay.
So there's one science lecture series which are free, and then there's many of them. What are the kinds of things?
So the science lecture series is something that we've developed maybe, I'm going to say 3 years ago, as kind of an alternative to a lot of these other programs. A lot of the programs that we do they're usually during the weekend or they're during school breaks, so they're focused towards children or families, which is a good thing. But we decided that, and hearing feedback from the public, that there was an interest in something that's more in depth about science work, geared more towards adults, older teens or adults. So this science lecture series is something that we came up with, like I said, a few years ago, and it's free, and it's usually on a Wednesday or Thursday evening, once a month. So upcoming, I don't know if we're going to be out of it for
Well, so like for example,
March.
for March, you have stuff on
March
frogs.
15th.
You have stuff on.
I think March 15th is before this would air. So we have a gentleman who he and his wife spent time doing research in Africa.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to give a presentation on their work in Africa. They were there for 9 months.
Well, you have in April. You have the American Woodcock Survey Training.
Yep, that's different though. That's citizen science.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want science lecture. Okay, where did the trees go? April 19th. What
Yep.
is-
So that focuses on specifically our work. So the habitat work that I said that we do, our science and stewardship staff.
Okay.
That's where we do habitat restoration to take areas that have become overgrown with trees, a lot of them invasive, non-native.
Okay.
Remove those trees and restore the pine barrens, the open pine barrens.
Okay. Now you actually have one in May coming on
Yeah.
May 17th called Science in the Albany Pine Bush Preserve.
Yep. So that one is led by our conservation director, Neil Gifford.
Okay.
And that talks. So he'll talk about a lot of the different things that we're doing in science. We do a lot of work with outside academics, like at SUNY ESF, Environmental Science and Forestry School in Syracuse. We do work with Union College. We do work with St. Rose. We do work with SUNY Albany, looking at different things as detailed as the fungi and soil and how that affects tree growth.
That sounds. So these are a little more in depth than the stuff you've done for kids here, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. So we kind of we try and balance it out and provide something for everybody.
So you have Friday walk and talks, which are not every Friday, but many Fridays in here. What are some of the things that people would get on that?
The Friday walk and talks is something that we tried to come up with as we used to call them First Friday hikes.
Okay.
And the idea was 1 hour hike or less, 45 minutes typically. Have it start at a trailhead that's near like businesses around that are near the pine bush, so people can go out on their lunch break, go for a walk, and it's usually geared towards adults.
But they actually they don't start at the Discovery.
Nope, they'll start at a different trailhead.
Right.
We got 12 different trailheads, so we start. And those are free. People just can come and join us, and it's like Discover the Pine Bush, but it's even lighter. Talk about, just get out, get some fresh air, talk about why the pine bush is important, be happy being outside.
Well, that sounds like a good way to spend your lunch hour.
It is.
Now this one here, Pine Bush Pups, is for kids 2 to 6. This is the only one that's not free, but it says $5 per family. So these are all, I guess 2 to 6, they'd be pretty young. Whatever.
They are.
Do they hike on this, or do they just?
They don't usually go very far. Most of those programs are inside.
Yeah, and they just learn.
And they'll do a craft.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of a recent one where you might build.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things.
You might build a mask, like an owl mask.
Okay.
So you learn. So we might do something and talking about owls, the owls of the pine bush. Give a little history on that. Pretty simple if we're focused on 2 to 6 year olds, and then do something like a craft that kind of ties back in.
And it looks like you had one already, but this sounds like it'd be fun. Learning about the different tracks animals make.
Yep, animal tracks in the winter.
Kids would like that, I think.
They do.
And then citizen science. Again, many of these.
So citizen science is something that a lot of organizations like ours who do science work and try and learn about our habitat management, the ecosystem that we have. We try and bring in people, citizens, outside people, to help us get information on that.
All right, so they actually are. They're not just coming to learn something; they're actually going to be helping you guys.
Right.
Oh, okay.
They basically gather data for us.
Right, that's what the Woodcocks.
Right.
Okay.
So the woodcock, which some people used to call snipe, American woodcock.
Okay.
So people just go out on trails, they hike, and they listen for the bird. They have a really distinctive call.
And then
the citizen scientists record where they heard it.
Oh, okay.
General location, time, date, etc. Or sometimes they actually see the flight display of the males.
Okay.
Male woodcocks do this spiraling flight up into the air. It's a kind of an interesting display.
Okay. And so they actually, and I noticed some of the other ones on the citizen science. You have a frog watch, Eastern whippoorwill training survey. It sounds like it's similar to the bird. A bumblebee watch. So they're actually going to be. What do they chart? Or they try to figure?
Well, let's see. So for whippoorwills, that would be you would listen for them because they have a distinctive call, and they call typically when it gets around dusk. They would start. So different areas around the preserve, you would have a volunteer or a citizen scientist, you would call them, listening for these birds and identifying where they heard them, when. Frog Watch is basically looking for frogs, toads and frogs, and that's part of a program with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
Okay.
So we're kind of tied into that.
I noticed the Frog Watch, though. You have one in the morning. No, are they? One's at night and one's in the early evening.
Yeah, so we're looking for different species because some are and some are more active at night and some are more active at dusk.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and then finally you got the thing. There's many programs. Well, you have evening programs. A lot of these are at evening. Turtle time.
Turtle time.
I didn't know that many turtles were. Is that one of your main?
Well, that's the only live animals that we have at the Discovery Center.
Oh, okay.
So that's an opportunity for, basically, we would bring out a turtle. So say we have our wood turtle. The wood turtle's brought out by one of the environmental educators. The environmental educator talks about the wood turtle, what its habitat is like, why do we have it in captivity, where you might see it in the pine bush, where else you might see it if it's not just indicative of the pine bush. And the only thing that people always need to know is that you can't touch the turtle.
Okay. So it sounds like for all these programs, you can either learn or you can participate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the whole idea, to try and get people involved. And so it's not just, I like museums, but some people would rather just go to places like the Discovery Center where it's not like a museum, and it's different than just a nature center. It's an opportunity to get involved and learn, and it's part of the tagline that goes with it, where learning comes naturally.
Okay. So now we'll talk about a couple of big events, and then we'll talk, if we have time, we'll talk about some of the trails.
Sure.
One of your big events, your Earth Day.
Earth Day is a big day.
April 21st. What are you guys doing for Earth Day?
Earth Day, we typically put together a whole group of activities, and if the weather's good, we'll attract close to 200, 250 people.
Oh, okay.
So this year we'll do trail maintenance, so trimming back trails. We'll do, unfortunately, trash cleanup, because there's always trash.
All right, again, so people can. This sounds like more participating.
This is just a day of participation.
Okay.
So people basically come out and help your preserve.
Okay, helping.
Tree planting, probably some boundary posting, some signage. What else would we do? I think that's it, because they're pretty large projects, and everybody who comes gets a free T-shirt and gets free lunch.
That's going to be Earth Day. That's Saturday, April 21st, 9 to noon.
9 to noon.
Can people just show up, or do you have to sign up?
We would ask people to sign up, but a lot of people just come.
Okay.
You can just come.
Now, I know I've asked you this in past years, but the people cannot participate. People can't participate when you do the flyers.
No. Well, no, but we do. Remember, so there are volunteers
for the controlled
burns, but they have to go through this very rigorous training, and it takes a long time. Okay. You have to pass a physical fitness test. You have to go through this training, and then you have to apprentice. It takes several years.
You're not just sending them out with a torch.
No.
And then, I'm just kidding.
I know.
So finally, now here's your big event, June 2nd. It's an all-day affair. It's called the Lupin Fest. Not only, to explain what that is, and you also have games, crafts, live music, everything.
Yep. We have guided tours. We usually have a number of hikes and walks. We have music. We'll have B95.5 will be there. Not that I should.
That's okay.
Plug anybody, but they come and they do a live remote. Which is fun, and they bring their bee mascot, which is ties into our bee surveys, and sort of.
So that's always a big.
That's a big day. That's usually a 2,000, 2,500 person event.
And I think
that's all, and that's free.
If I remember from last year, people at the park away and
they have
to get bussed over.
Right. So basically, what you do is and we have lots of signs that guide you. There's parking that's donated by BBL.
Okay.
At that same where Living Resources is on Washington Avenue Extension. BBL donates their parking lot to us, and we bus. So we have small buses. You get on the bus, and we drive you over, and then we take you back. And there's usually 3 different shuttles that are running all the time.
Well, you
never have to wait.
That's because you're using your big parking lot, right?
Right. So our parking lot is limited to about 100 spaces. So we have some spots for handicap parking.
Okay.
So it's accessible. but the rest of it is filled with tents. So you have vendors, you have
Yeah.
craft
And then
vendors, you have food
live
vendors,
music. and
live
everything.
music.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That sounds like a big day.
Yeah, it's a
over
fun
there.
day.
And again, that's Saturday, June 2nd,
Yep.
10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It's an all-day affair. And finally, you're having this June 16th, also a Saturday, 9 to noon, or 9 to 11, the historic Trolley Tour. What is?
So that's a new endeavor that we're trying. One of our educators, our lead environmental educator, came to me and said, "What would you think if we were able to rent one of those trolleys like they do in downtown
Yeah.
Albany to take people on an historic tour? If we did that around the Pine Bush, because there's a lot of history for around the Pine Bush. You know, the Pine Bush itself is important." But there's a lot of history that goes along with it. There's a major trading route between Schenectady and Albany, and there's an historic site with a tavern, a former tavern there. So there's in the old Kings Highway.
Oh, okay.
So this is something new we're going to try.
Oh, this will be the
First time.
First time. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's going to be Saturday, June 16th. Well, that sounds like you have a lot. And like I say, these brochures will be in the library. If you go to albanypinebush.org, go to the calendar, all these events. Some you can just show up, some you have to register, right? Is that the easiest way to?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to go online and register, because they almost always fill up all the programs.
Okay. Really?
So go online, go on under Get Involved, Discovery Center. There's a calendar there, and you can sign up.
Oh, okay.
And some of the programs are free. The Discovery Center is always free. The programs, most of them are $3 a person, $5 a family, unlimited.
Okay.
So it's a reasonable price to allow families to have a nice activity at a reasonable
All right.
cost.
So this goes through June. So obviously there'll be a June to December book also.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That'll come out in probably late June.
Okay. So now that we have a little extra time, let me just talk a little bit about the trails. You have 12. I have a couple maps here. This is only 2 of the trails, but you have 12.
Yep,
It's
we have
12 trails.
12 trails.
But I notice
Yep.
each trail, like this is the Madison Avenue one. Each trail has trails within it. Like this one has 3. This one has 5. So you have obviously more than 12. How many trails do you have? More than 12. I mean, there's 12 main ones, and
Well, there's 12 trailheads. So the trailhead is basically where you begin.
yeah, and each one has
So
different colors.
if you combine them all,
Yeah.
there's over 20 miles. There's like 22 miles of trails.
Okay. Are there any ones that are more popular than others, or people just?
Well, the ones at the Discovery Center are very popular because it's easy to park.
Yeah, okay.
The ones the one specifically off of Western Avenue there's Willow Street is off of Western Avenue. That's a dead-end road. Parking there, a lot of people like to go there and cross-country ski, snowshoe, or mountain bike because it's quieter.
Oh, okay.
It's a little more.
Do some of the
off
other
the beaten
ones?
path.
Do some of the other ones have their own parking areas?
They all have some parking, but it could be limited.
Oh, okay.
It could be limited to. There's some that have maybe 3 cars.
Okay.
The idea is to make connections more so. So now we have a connection where you can park at the Discovery Center, go on the trail. You basically go under 155, parallel the thruway, go into what's called Carner Barrens West, which is all going to be Carner Barrens. You can cross Kings Road. I'm sorry. Old State Road at the intersection with Kings Road. Then you go into the Kings Road Barrens, and then you go all the way back through, and you can. It's a pretty long loop that you can do.
And what was the total? 20 miles?
Yeah, almost 22 now.
Oh, okay. And then in the winter, you're a lot of snowshoers.
A lot of snowshoers. We do snowshoe programs. Ella Bean used to do snowshoe programs. They haven't this year because of the the lack of snow. It's
Okay.
kind of
Well,
funny to say
until
that
yesterday,
now.
I know.
Until yesterday. Until Friday, and then yesterday, right?
Now, are the cross-country skiing and the snowshoeing, are they the same trails as the hiking trails?
Same trail.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
good.
And usually the snowshoers and the cross-country skiers try and stay on one side or the other to respect.
Oh, okay.
Because cross-country skiers obviously like the track,
Yeah.
and snowshoers can destroy the track. But everybody seems to get along.
Very good. Finally, there's one other thing. People can get involved. these little brochures.
With friends,
We'll
right.
have some of these. Just like the library, we have a Friends of the Library. You have a Friends of the Pine Bush.
Yep.
And you can join. There's different levels you can join. What do the Friends group? Obviously, if they're like our Friends group, they do tons of stuff for the library. What does your Friends group do?
They do a lot of outreach things for us. So, for example, they go to tabling events. They do. They'll go to, for example, like Gildan Night Out at
like
their park, where you have tabling events and do outreach things.
Oh, just like bring information.
Yeah.
Okay.
They recruit volunteers. They actually sponsor the science lecture series.
Oh, okay.
And one thing that they do specifically with their membership donations is they have this thing called Ticket to Ride. So typically inner city schools, but schools that have a certain percentage of free lunch program,
Yeah.
a reduced lunch, they apply for a grant from the Friends. The Friends then give them the grant money to pay for busing, because
Okay.
these schools don't have the money usually
Yeah.
for field trips. So they get a grant for the busing. The buses bring the students to the Discovery Center, excuse me, and then we waive the fee for the students.
Oh, okay.
So the whole program's free, including the busing, for kids that normally wouldn't have an
They
opportunity.
wouldn't get out there. Okay.
We do that a lot for Troy, Schenectady, and Albany.
And what do the
schools.
kids? The kids like getting out there?
Oh, they do. They love it.
I'm from Troy, so I would have loved a place like that.
Sure.
Well, thanks, Chris, for coming back. Again, there's a lot
Thanks
of
for the
events.
opportunity.
Many months, all year round. You got stuff going on, all days of the week, all times of day. Here's the brochure again. We'll have stacks of them in the library. You can come in or go online, albanypinebush.org. And thanks for coming. We'll probably see you next year.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All
Joe.
right? And that is it for Getting to Know You.